Okay, a couple of days have passed since this trailer, and I've had a lot of time to chill out about it, watch it 100 times, and I've gone through it frame by frame. And this is going to be a spoiler-free breakdown of this Dune Part 3 trailer. I'm in my Bene Gesserit hoodie today to celebrate us talking about Dune. HBO sent me this for the premiere of the TV show, and it's comfy, and I'm in my sweats and my sweatshirt, and I've chilled out. I'm using the costume department to communicate to you guys that I've chilled out about this trailer. So let's go through this scene by scene, and I don't want to spoil the end of my own review, but the end of this trailer breakdown is going to be a massive, what I think was a breakthrough in understanding this movie and the marketing of it and the importance of color. And I think that the title card that we get at the end of the trailer and that they're using on their marketing is a pretty huge clue that plays into this big theory of mine. And I hate to sound like a YouTuber who asks you to stay until the end, but please, if you're interested in understanding this movie and my perception of this movie, please do watch until the end, because the end is going to be the most important part of this video. Without further ado, let's get right into this Dune Part 3 trailer breakdown. So the trailer begins by cutting back and forth between what I think is a flashback from before Chani leaves in Dune Part 2 and to what I'm guessing is right after Paul shaves his head in Dune Part 3. We get this kind of back and forth, seemingly him remembering simpler times with Chani, talking about, their hypothetical children that they could have together. It's also interesting to note how the trailer opens on water, and not just water, but the use of it I think is really interesting. We see Paul sort of bathing in the water. I believe he's just freshly shaved his head. I love that this trailer opens up showing us how much the relationship with water has changed on Arrakeen over the years of Paul's emperorship. I think if a Fremen from Dune Part 2 were found just washing his head with that much water, he would have been killed on the spot. His water would have been returned to the well. Right off the bat, really interesting to note how much the relationship with water has changed. And a lot of people have also pointed out the similarities of Paul brushing his hand over his head, scalp, and face is very similar to a Marlon Brando shot. But also of the Baron's introduction in Dune Part 1 with the same thing where there's a Harkonnen being wasteful of water, taking a steam shower, running his hand down his head over his face. But in the flashback scenes, Paul and Chani are discussing what to name their hypothetical boy or girl, and we get a shot of a woman on a paraglider as Paul suggests the name Ganima, or Ganima, however you want to pronounce it. And there's no real reason for me to make this claim, but I have looked at this frame really closely, and I'm going to make this claim that I believe that this is actually a shot of Ganima. Now, this isn't a spoiler. It was widely reported and global news that Ida Brooke and Nakoa Wolf-Momoa were cast in Dune Part 3. We don't know for sure their extent of their involvement with this movie. I could be completely wrong, and this is not Ganima, but I'm making the claim now. And I'm basing that based off of, if you look really closely at the hair of this woman gliding, it looks extremely curly and black hair, while Zendaya has more of a wavy and lighter hair color. So I actually really believe that this is Ida Brooke. This is Ganima gliding through the air. Random prediction, not necessary, but fun. And then the last shot we get from this scene before the trailer really picks up is Paul angrily clenching his fist in the water. And I believe that that is so important. I can't get into it in this video. This is spoiler free, but I will do a spoiler video. But oh my goodness, I think this clenched, angry fist in the water is extremely important. In this shot of Paul and Alia leading a prayer with the Fremen, we can see a small red light coming from a device on Alia's neck. I think this is either just a simple communication device, like how we saw on Thufir's neck behind his ear in Dune Part 1, or it could be the trigger to her suspensor belts. And later in the trailer, we see her floating through some narrow opening, but I'll get to that shot later. We then get to see a couple shots on what I'm guessing is Wallach 9, the homeworld of the Bene Gesserit, our first look at that home world of the BG. We see one smaller figure in a cloak and a hood and 7 Bene Gesserit witches behind them. The next shot reveals that this cloaked figure is Empress Irulan, played by the wonderful Florence Pugh. I'm a huge Florence Pugh fan. Can't wait to see more from her in the Dune world. Something that does confuse me though is how in the first shot, Irulan is like leading the pack, the witches are behind her, but then when the camera switches to the other side, there's nobody behind her. So either the trailer has edited the people out behind her, or she just waited a while before entering this spooky room, which the trailer does cut away from this shot of the door opening, like right after we see a sliver inside of this seemingly bright room. In the book, this is the first scene that takes place. The meeting room is described as being a transparent dome that the Bene Gesserit had built specifically for this meeting. Then we cut to the most controversial scene in the trailer so far among the Dune fandom, which is this shot of a floating tank entering a room with Scytale turning around and looking at somebody off camera. So there seems to be a pretty even divide on the internet about whether this is Edric or Hayt in the tank. A quick explanation of these two people. This is not spoiler, this is basic character explanation and plot points that are in the movie and that we can see from the trailer. I'm just going over characters in the story, not going into depth about the meaning of them, whatever. Edric is a third stage Spacing Guild navigator, steersman, ambassador. He has a lot of titles, but he's the ambassador for the Spacing Guild, commonly referred to as a steersman. But he was once a normal human being, but through extreme spice consumption, he's now essentially like a fish-like amorphous being that has to be in a spice tank at all times. Hayt, on the other hand, is the Gola of Duncan, Idaho. He is reanimated flesh of the Atreides swordmaster, who was once Paul's closest friend. The Bene Gesserit had recovered his body from being killed in Dune Part 1, brought it back, and they reanimate his DNA, creating a Gola named Hayt. So a lot of people believe that this is Hayt being delivered as a gift. He's brought to life. That's obvious from the trailer, and a lot of people think that he's in this box as like a gift. But I am 95%, 90% positive that this is Edric, and I want to make my case for that in this moment. My first point of defense for this being Edric comes from the frame itself. I actually created a layer mask around the tank. I increased the exposure and contrast and messed with the lighting, and what my eyes are seeing is a floating tank, a strong orange glow emanating from inside, seemingly from spice melange, and a misshapen head. Also, later in the trailer, we seemingly get another shot of this floating tank going into a larger container. And if you look really closely at this shot, you can see into the larger container through the holes surrounding the sort of entrance area. And you can see that there is a large source of orange light coming from inside of the larger vessel. So my theory is that Edric spends most of his time in this larger tank. He's commonly in the book described as he has a tank to swim around in. I believe this is where he swims around in, and then when he needs to go on business, he can swim into his pod and sort of float and drive that thing around. So I think this is Denis' sort of creative solution to having this character that needs to be in a tank, but he needs to move around. I believe he has like a home. I compare it to being a human. We have our homes where we can walk around, move around, but when you gotta go to work, you get in your car and you travel in a smaller, tighter pod. So I believe that this is Edric. Also, in a video put out by Nerdist, which is a company that is subsidized by Legendary Digital Networks, the host Matt pretty explicitly claims that this is Edric in the tank.
But now we finally get our first look, well, look-ish, at a full Spacing Guild navigator. In this brief shot, we see a threatening floating sarcophagus with the navigator named Edric enclosed inside.
Okay, moving on from the Edric controversy, we get a collection of shots from a scene that takes place in the suburbs of Arrakeen, which is the capital of Arrakis. We get a few wide shots of people flying through the air with suspensor belts, which, by the way, I think this person is absolutely Alia that's flying. The pale face, black hair, and same long sword that we see in another shot of her. But we then get a couple more shots of what I think is the Jihad, Stilgar and his Fedaykin fighting space samurai, which is the coolest sentence I could have ever thought I would say when talking about a Dune movie. I love this creative decision of showing another planet, having another culture, and the cinematic choice of having them be space samurai. I'm just obsessed with that. I don't have anything to add to this conversation other than I love this creative decision. And now we arrive at the shot of the trailer. I think the most important shot, the coolest shot, and the most symbolic, meaningful shot of this trailer, which is somehow already my favorite frame from a Dune movie, and the movie's not even out yet, and I'll explain. The first being, look at this. Look how cool this is. Alia with a flowing white dress in the wind at the pulpit of her temple. The way the dress is flowing in the wind reminds me of some like alien visual, like jean jacket and Nope. She looks like this creature that's expanding herself, making her image larger than life, and it's like this religious expression of who she is, and I love it so much. But the main reason that I love this shot is actually in the symbolism and the deeper meaning of Dune. Paul, Alia, Jessica, and many others have been known for their role in manipulating and using the Fremen's religion to serve their ulterior motives or alternate missions, whatever. And Alia and Paul, I think, intentionally built this altar to look like the mouth of Shai-Hulud, a sacred being amongst the Fremen. So this shot isn't just a shot of Alia looking cool and giving a sermon, but literally placing herself in the mouth of Shai-Hulud and speaking for him. How much more manipulative can you get than to create a religion, stoke ideas of the native animals being sacred beings, and then position yourself as the mouthpiece for that god? Incredible shot, and just, I think, really hits to the core at what Dune means and what I love about Dune. So my favorite shot, but the next shot will lead directly into my big theory about this movie that I talked about at the beginning. Let's get into it. This is my favorite part of the video that as I was writing this breakdown, I stumbled upon this and I had to pause and spend like another 3 hours writing and developing this idea. And I hope that it's delivered in a way that is as powerful as it was for me discovering it. So we get this shot of a bunch of bald, tattooed people kneeling in the rain on what I think is Arrakeen. And this shot is extremely important because it started the idea in my head of how important color is in this movie and in this trailer. If we've learned anything about these Dune movies, it is that every creative choice is extremely intentional and is telling a story, is communicating something. In the costume department, these are artists that are also getting in on the job of communicating deep themes and communicating things. So once I opened my mind to how important the color of the character's wardrobe was, it opened my eyes to this idea, this theory that I came up with. These orange wardrobes, once you see it in this trailer, you cannot unsee it. Throughout the trailer, orange keeps showing up. Followers, guards, even what look like some Fremen. Inside of what I believe is Alia's temple, there are rows of armed figures dressed in orange robes and headbands. Behind Hayt, we get an even clearer look at one of these guards with an orange headband. And then, right at the end, during that insane sandworm sequence, when Chani is fighting on top of a moving worm, look closely at this guy that peeks out from behind her. For a split second, a fighter peeks out from behind her blue, what seems like sort of blue armor. It's like this plastic or metallic armor that is on her leg. I'm not sure what this is, but it's a very blue armor, and she's wearing her blue Nizoni scarf around her wrist. But a Fremen peeks out from behind her wearing an orange headband. So here's my big theory involving the marketing of this movie and the colors. This movie is visually setting up a war, not just of armies, but of ideologies. It's orange versus blue. On one side, you have followers of Alia Atreides, the true believers, the zealots, the Gesserit, the ones who see Paul Atreides not as a man, but as Muad'Dib, as the Kwisatz Haderach, a messiah whose destiny must be fulfilled no matter the cost. And Alia is at the center of that belief. Tormented by ancestral voices, driven by something deeper than humanity, she will do anything to make sure Paul becomes what she believes he is meant to be. So that's the orange side, but blue is represented by Chani. The blue is doubt, blue is love, and blue is truth. Chani doesn't see a god, she sees the man who came to Arrakeen, who fought Jamis and honored him, who stood with her people against the Harkonnens, who earned their respect. She's fighting for the real Paul, not the myth or the prophecy. And that's where this gets really interesting, because even the title card leads into this. It's a mix of blue and gold, or blue and orange, which is not just an aesthetic choice, it's communicating the main battle of this movie. There are two futures, two versions of Paul being pulled in opposite directions. And even in this title card, other people have pointed out how the eye at the center, it's symbolic of Paul's eye, but also the mouth of Shai Hulud. The blue and the orange in the title card are fighting over Paul and the message and the symbolism of Shai Hulud. If part 2 was the battle for Arrakis, Dune part 3 is the battle for Paul's soul. The blue and the orange dueling for what does Shai Hulud really mean? Is it this spiritual, godlike creature that is meant to invoke religious themes, or is it an animal that we can use to further our society and use as vehicles and create a harmonious relationship with them? Or is it something that we should be bowing down to? So that's my theory. I hope it doesn't come out too, I'm excited about it, and I do think it's a big deal. Before the trailer came out, even like a year ago, I had been thinking about what sort of color scheme they might use for this movie. Dune Part 1 was blue, Dune Part 2 was very heavy orange. Oh my God. Wait, I'm just now as I'm saying that, okay, Dune Part 1 was extremely blue, Dune Part 2 was extremely orange in the marketing, and Dune Part 3 is the battle of those colors. Oh my gosh, I'm really concerned that I'm coming off like I think I'm so smart, but I do think that I stumbled upon this as I was writing this. I really hope this doesn't come off. This is coming from a sincere place. I'm not trying to gas myself up. Wow, yeah, Dune Part 1 was blue, Dune Part 2 was orange, and Dune Part 3 is the battle between them. So I'll end my spoiler-free review on that theory. I hope that isn't, and I also hope that isn't received as like spoiler talk. I'm only using information from the trailer. I'm also using like my knowledge of like the deeper Dune lore, but I'm not saying anything that isn't readily available to be discovered in this trailer. So I don't think that that's spoiler talk at all. But I will do a full spoiler video in the coming days, or in the next week or so, because I have a lot of spoilers that I want to talk about. But I appreciate you guys watching. I hope this was informative or interesting. And yeah, I think these movies, every creative choice is intentional, and we have to treat it as such and think deeply about. The title card is not random. The eye symbolism, the worm symbolism, and the colors that are fighting. The colors are actively fighting. I love the title card. The colors are actively fighting throughout them, and not just the end title card, but in all of the hype cards halfway through from Denis Villeneuve and Witness the Epic Conclusion. All of them show off sort of the blue and orange morphing into each other and swallowing each other and fighting. I absolutely believe that this movie is going to be the battle for Paul's soul between Chani and Alia and what they represent. Thanks for watching, everybody. New videos out soon. I'll be putting these clips on social media. I appreciate you all. I love that you love Dune. And thanks for going on this journey with me. Let's keep studying this movie. Let me know what else you guys have discovered in this trailer. Let's have fun with it.